Coming up on Network Africa. South Africa's anti-apartheid activist Nelson Mandela's daughter, Zinzi Mandela, dies at the age of 59. Health workers in South Sudan resign after testing positive for COVID-19. Plus, 2 lawmakers die in Madagascar after contracting the coronavirus. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Layo Advocacy. We begin this week with stories and happenings that made headlines over the weekend.
5 people were killed in an attack on a church west of Johannesburg in the early hours of Saturday, with some of the attackers taking hostages who were later freed. South African police arrested around 40 people and seized 40 firearms, including rifles, shotguns and handguns, related to the attack on the International Pentecost Holiness Church in Zululand.
We've arrested over 41 suspects, including 6 who have been taken to hospital, purportedly after suffering certain injuries and gunshot wounds. And we also seized over 40 firearms, including rifles, shotguns and handguns.
Local media reported that one potential motive for the attack is a power struggle at the church between rival factions. Mali's state television, ORTM, went off-air after hundreds of protesters demanding the resignation of President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta occupied the building. The rally in the capital, Bamako, descended into chaos as protesters tried to occupy buildings including the National Assembly, the State Broadcasting House and 2 major bridges, while police fired tear gas to disperse them. Opposition leaders have been calling for the president to step down, rejecting concessions intended to quell growing unrest in the country. In response, the president dissolved the Constitutional Court, repealing the licenses of the members. Botswana has received test results from samples sent to Zimbabwe to determine the cause of death of hundreds of elephants, but is waiting for more results from South Africa before sharing findings with the public. Wildlife officials want to determine what has killed over 280 elephants about 2 months after the first bodies were found, ruling out poaching and anthrax. While the dead only make up a small fraction of Botswana's estimated 130,000 elephants, there are fears more could die if authorities can't establish the cause of death soon.
To one of our major stories now, Nelson Mandela and Winnie Madikizela Mandela's second daughter, Zinzi, has died at the age of 59. The Department of International Relations confirmed her death today as she was serving as South Africa's ambassador to Denmark at the time of death. The 59-year-old was a political activist and was among those who fought the oppressive apartheid regime. When she was 18 months old, her father was sent to prison. Her mother was also imprisoned, often at the time, sometimes for long stretches, leaving Zinzi in the care of her elder sister, Zenani. In 1985, Zinzi was selected to read her father's refusal speech at the then President P.W. Botha offered him conditional release from prison. Zinzi has written poetry and has been published on several occasions. One of her works, Black as I Am, included pictures taken by revered Drum magazine journalist Peter Mugubane. More recently, she sparked national debates over anti-apartheid statements she made on social media. However, the cause of her death has not been disclosed yet.
I feel so very sad. It's very sad for the country, as we human beings as well, because she had played a good role into our lives as well. And as a woman, she was a Bogoto to us. We seen different things when it comes to her.
So it came at the wrong time. I think Zinzi, if you follow her story, and how she liberated the freedom of the country, and how her mother played a role. From a young age, you could see she was a real fighter. She stood for the rights of all South Africans, whether white or black. And I think her passing comes at the wrong time and as a dent to the country.
So it's very sad. I mean, Zinzi Mandela, or let me say, the Mandela family is basically a family that led the liberation of South Africa. So to hear of all these people from that family, all of them just leaving us so soon, is very painful.
Well, our South Africa Bureau Chief, Bessie Dibia, joins us now for more on this. Hello, Betty. We've listened to the citizens, some of the citizens there. It's indeed a sad time in the country.
Definitely very sad. I got the privilege of meeting Zinzi Mandela, very feisty, very outspoken about things she believed in, and very fearless, even never hiding under the cloak of being in the diplomatic service. She spoke out, even as the ambassador that she was before she died. So it's indeed sad. Those who knew her have been recounting experiences with her, the detention, speaking up against apartheid, the apartheid government at the time, and having to go over to Eswatini or Swaziland at the time to study. She never got to meet her father till she was about 15, when she went over to the prison where he was. So it's quite remarkable given the accounts that people have been given, but it's indeed a sad day in the country hearing that Zinzi Mandela has died.
And I imagine reactions and tributes have been pouring into the Mandela family also.
Yes, from the president to the ANC to all the different groupings and regular citizens as well. Of course, because of the COVID, we expected people to gather around the family homes, probably at Houghton or Soweto, where her mother, Winnie Mandela, lived till she died. But people were just passing through. So I guess fear of COVID, but that hasn't stopped people from paying tribute, calling her the names that she was, quite fearless, quite outspoken, quite. I know there are those who would not agree. Let me not, I don't want to say just white people who have, or some groupings, let me put it that way, some groupings who have described some of her comments, especially recently, as racist and divisive comments. But she had answers for them, saying she owes no white man or woman an explanation regarding her opinions. But generally, people have been paying tribute to a very remarkable woman who started out quite early fighting for the freedom of her country.
Yeah, as at this morning, the cause of death wasn't made public. Do we now have any information on that?
Not yet. We're still waiting for an official statement from the family. That hasn't happened. Maybe that hasn't happened at this point. People, as even all those paying tribute, are holding back to get full details. But what we understand is that she was taken to hospital yesterday. I don't know how true that is. I don't have confirmation. And then she died this morning. Incidentally, her half-brother, Thembekile Mandela, died same day many years ago, about, I think, 1969. That's Mandela's son by his first wife. Died same day, July the 13th, 1969. So we're still waiting to get the official statement from her family to know probably the cause of death and maybe funeral arrangements.
That is quite the coincidence, what you just said there. But before I let you go, what legacy is she leaving behind in the country and even for the world?
I guess her fearlessness and being outspoken for things of what she believes is right, which I guess many people can imbibe. Fearlessness for the freedom of her country to speak against the elements or the issues that affect freedom of people in any part of the world. She's played roles in different charities. She had her own foundation as well. But just being able to speak truth to power Even sometimes she had to call on the ANC, are you still awake? This is going on in our country. Up till the time she died. So I guess it's that fearlessness in expressing your views about what you think is right, what you think is right for the people, for your people, and for the people around the world.
All right, then, Betty Dibia, thank you so much. Our South Africa Bureau Chief, Betty Dibia, thank you for speaking to us.
Thank you, Lai.
Well, the former Somali Prime Minister Hassan Abshir Farah has died in Turkey at the age of 75. He held the post between 2001 and 2003 under interim president Abdi Kasim Salat Hassan, also served as the mayor of the capital, Mogadishu, in the 1970s. President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo announced his death, saying Mr. Farah had played a positive role in the governance and development of Somalia. The government has formed a committee to organize a state funeral for him, but no date has been set yet. Meanwhile, the former president of the semi-autonomous Somali region of Puntland, Mohamed Abdi Hashish, has died in Kenya's capital, Nairobi. He was Puntland's first vice president and second president from 2004 to 2005. Meanwhile, federal states in Somalia have ruled out the possibility of holding their first one-person, one-vote election this year, saying the country is not ready. In a communique after a two-day meeting in the central town of Domashareb, the leaders of Galmudug, Puntland, Jubaland, Harishabelle and Southwest states called for an alternative election model. They also called for a meeting with the federal government to seek a politically negotiated electoral model. However, they say they will reject any attempts to extend the terms of the federal president and prime minister. Last month, Somalia's electoral chief, Halima Ibrahim, called for the elections to be postponed to August 2021, moving the parliamentary and presidential polls further, which were scheduled for November 2020 and February 2021, respectively. The United Nations and the African Union have condemned the government of Mali for what they called its use of lethal force on protesters who are calling for the resignation of President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta. The protests, which started last month, turned violent on Friday, with police reportedly firing gunshots towards demonstrators, some of whom had occupied government buildings in the capital, Bamako. In a statement, the UN mission in Mali, the African Union and European Union, and also the West African Regional Group in ECOWAS all criticized the Malian authorities over its handling of the protests. They have also condemned vandalism by the protesters and called on all parties to exercise restraints. We begin our coronavirus updates from South Sudan, where some of the 16 health workers in the country who tested positive for COVID-19 have resigned. The country's health ministry says 8 of them resigned last week due to pressure from their families, who expressed concerns that they might bring the virus home and infect family members. Some are thought to have deserted duty after witnessing COVID-19 patients dying. Well, however, spokesman for the National COVID-19 Task Force, Professor Mayen Aichek, says if they come back, they will be accepted because of their expertise, and everybody is needed against the fight. 2 lawmakers in Madagascar have also died after contracting the coronavirus. President Andry Rajoelina announced this on Sunday. One is a member of the Senate and the other a deputy. Mr. Rajoelina also said 11 other deputies and 14 senators had also tested positive for the virus. The government had last week placed one of its main regions, which covers the capital, back under a strict lockdown following a surge in infections. There are about 4,000 confirmed cases in the country, and 34 people have died so far since the virus was first detected in March. You're watching Network Africa on Channels Television. Still to come on the program. South Africa's singer and songwriter Zinzi Mandela speaks about what it's like during the COVID-19 pandemic for his career. Please stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. We continue in South Africa, where reactions are trailing the government's decision to reimpose a ban on the sale of alcohol. It has not only come as a shock to many, but has been met with unhappiness from some quarters. The country's main opposition party, the Democratic Alliance, has accused the government of using the alcohol ban as a scapegoat for its failures to provide adequate health care amid the coronavirus crisis. Businesses are not thrilled either. The alcohol industry is a massive employer, and concerns have been expressed about how the livelihoods of those who rely on this industry will be protected in the coming weeks. However, President Cyril Ramaphosa and his government believe the decision is necessary if the country has any hope of saving lives.
This is a fight to save every life, and we at the same time need to save every bed in our health facilities. We've now decided that the sale, the dispensing, and the distribution of alcohol will be suspended with immediate effect.
A UK charity, Save the Children, is warning that at least 9.7 million children around the world may never return to school because of the coronavirus pandemic. The group says the economic impact of the crisis on countries around the world could force children to enter the workplace early, and girls are likely to be much more affected than the boys. According to the organization, the areas most at risk of seeing children drop out of education include countries in West and Central Africa, as well as Yemen and Afghanistan. Save the Children's president says this is an unprecedented education emergency and governments must urgently invest in learning. Many schools across Africa remain under lock and key as part of efforts in curbing the spread of COVID-19. We have joining us now on the program Lola Alonge. She's the Executive Director of the Child Health Advocacy Initiative. Thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you for having me.
Let me begin by asking you what you think of this projection of millions of children not being able to return to school after the coronavirus lockdown. What are your thoughts?
Well, this is actually quite sad, and I think it's an issue that everyone should really be worried about. We know, according to the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, every child has a right to good education. Yes, we are aware the COVID-19 pandemic they have to stay at home, but I think there are other measures, a lot of things the government would have to put in place. I'm aware a lot of TV educational program is actually on. We have radio and some other internet education is going on here and there. But there's need to do a lot more, starting with government, yes. Because we know we have a lot of other children who are not really, they don't have access to internet, they don't have access to TV or even radio. So they need to be more creative and then look at other ways of reaching them. Of course, looking at maybe even distributing books at home, or even going as far as donating or giving out radios with batteries to those in remote areas. And of course, issues like abuse, child marriage, that's on the increase as well. For example, we've been hearing a lot of cases of children being abused sexually, even by close relative members. We've been hearing a lot of children being married off. We are aware a lot of children are now like breadwinners on street trading. And of course, it's obvious that they won't really get back to school even when the school opens. So this is the time for everyone to really be on their alert and see what can be done. Civil society organizations should be out there raising awareness and even looking at ways to protect these children from all forms of abuse. And of course, the government should also look at more creative ways to get the education to the children, even though they are not in school.
Yes, I was actually going to ask. A lot of schools are still closed, and closures create some sort of educational loss for many children. Although there are online alternatives, like you rightly pointed out, but then there are many who aren't privileged enough to have this. What would be the best way, really, to solve this problem in Nigeria and Africa?
Okay, looking at Nigeria to be specific now, like I said, they need to be more creative. I'm aware some NGOs and even some wives of some governors, states, they've started distributing radios to remote areas so that the children can have access. They use the radio for the education that will be delivered to them. And I think they're also giving them things like battery, because most of those places don't even have electricity. So that's one of the things I think government should invest in more. For those in the remote areas where they don't have access to internet or electricity, they should be able to provide radios and batteries to them, and even maybe distribute books and even things like this notepads where you can have a lot of information that you can use as well. So they should also look at ways of protecting them beyond just making available these educational materials, because even when it's there and the parents don't allow them to stay at home and read, and they're on the streets out there, or they are being abused, and then they can't even get to continue education. So it is the state governors and of course the agencies, like I'm aware Lagos State has the child protection policy in place. They have a child safeguarding policy, and they have organizations who are actually working with them to make sure children are protected